All right, well, let's get a response from the official opposition. James Bezan is the Conservative Shadow Minister for National Defence, joining me from Parliament Hill. And we should say that we did reach out to the government. The Liberals were not able to provide someone today for a panel, but we will speak with Mr. Bezan about the Conservative view. Now, the government is promising $9 billion in new spending to reach that 2% NATO target this year instead of several years down the road. Will your party be supporting that funding when it comes to a vote as supplementary estimates?
Well, first of all, we do support increasing defence spending to meet the NATO commitment of 2%. We campaigned on that, and we do support getting there faster and getting there this year, knowing that the world is a much more dangerous place. You know, Pierre Poilievre has been very clear that Canada has to take care of ourselves. We can't be dependent upon our allies anymore. That means that we have to make the investments in our troops, in our equipment, and making sure that we can protect our sovereignty, especially in the Arctic. So we're calling on the government to buy the things that we need as quickly as possible, but we need to know the plan on how to get there, and we do expect a budget to support this operational spending. We know that the $9 billion more spending that was announced in the National Defence plans that came out in the supplementary estimates this morning. However, it's still short of where 2% is, and so we need to know where that other money is coming from and how much more other departments are also going to increase. So, you know, there's a lot of questions that we have here that we're going to have for the minister and the government as we go forward, and the best way that they can answer this is actually present a budget and we'll try to get it out of here before Canada Day so that Canadians know how the government's going to spend this money that is coming from the taxpayers of Canada.
Okay, given what you have seen, though, of that $9 billion plan, the government did break it down into categories. As you look at the details to date, do you think it is something that your party can get behind?
Yeah, so we are supporting this. I think that the question becomes how they present it in the House. You know, normally on most of the supplementary estimates, the official opposition opposes. So if this is done in a vote line by department, you know, I would think that we would be supportive, but there's still a lot of details that have to be fleshed out. Including how the Canadian Coast Guard is going to be absorbed into national defence. You're talking about a civilian organization that has no mandate at this current time on national security, including border patrol and protection. So are they going to be arming up our Coast Guard vessels? Are they going to be putting troops on board, or are they going to be training up some of the civilians who serve on our Coast Guard vessels as paramilitary members? Or you know, the other question around it is what happens with the rest of the Coast Guard mandate that has nothing to do with national defence, such as fisheries monitoring, their ice breaking in our commercial channels like the St. Lawrence Seaway, and also what are they doing with the environmental program that so often referred to as one of the best in Canada, if not the world, that the Coast Guard undertakes on behalf of you know, scientists from across the country.
I do want to ask you about procurement as well. That was part of the announcement, a promise to move forward on a new defence procurement agency, because we've heard for years about this being an issue. You know that well, given your experience on the national defence file. Did you hear anything today from the government that gives you optimism that we're going to be moving ahead on a faster timeline with actually seeing the government spend money without having funding lapse or seeing delays in these projects?
Well, they are talking about bringing forward a defence procurement agency. They've talked about this in the past. It was in the 2019 campaign. We studied this at the National Defence Committee back in the 2015 time frame of Parliament. And what it comes down to is that we need some actual leadership on this. We need to get the money out the door. The Department of both National Defence and Public Works and Procurement Canada have been very slow on making decisions when it comes to major procurements. Like right now, you know, Prime Minister Carney's got us doing a review of the F-35. That's just, again, potentially slowing down the replacement of the fighter jets that our Royal Canadian Air Force desperately needs. So we want that review done as quickly as possible so we can get the jets that our Air Force wants. So, you know, procurement is a difficult file. So we want to know if they're going to be doing this faster, how are they going to do this to respect the current procurement rules and regulations that we have as defined underneath the Treasury Board, and ultimately ensure that the Canadian defence industry is able to benefit from it, and ultimately where we can't produce it here domestically, if they're going to be buying it off the shelf from other countries.
Okay, in the time we have left, I want to talk about the NATO commitment and the NATO targets, because during the campaign, Conservatives, your party, and Liberals talked about reaching that number by 2030. Now, NATO Secretary General says if we think we can keep ourselves safe sticking with the 2%, forget it. And we've now got this new idea of a 5% level of defense spending, including core spending and defense-related infrastructure. Where do you think that leaves Canada?
Well, first of all, NATO needs to come to a consensus, and you can't just arbitrarily set a number and have all member states reach that goal. So I think that we've got to make sure that there's going to be consensus from all member states that this is how they want to go. For most of the countries, including Canada, just going from 2% to 3.5%, which would be the core funding, is a big leap. And then in Canada, you know, the other funding into infrastructure becomes a little more convoluted, because they also have to work alongside the provinces and territories who are responsible for a lot of that infrastructure, whether it's highways, train, rail, as well as ports, and how that is done in a way that is acceptable under the NATO guideline. So, you know, there's a lot of questions that need to be asked, but we're willing to look at it. We want to know how we can do more to support the Canadian Armed Forces, protect our sovereignty, and ensure that Canada is safe from the excursions that we're witnessing in our Arctic from Russia, from China, and others that have other alternative motives for traversing through our Arctic waters.
Okay, let's finish on this then. Let's stay on the international front. And in the context of today's announcement, this extra $9 billion, the plan to reach the 2%, how do you expect Canada's allies are going to react to this? How do you expect the United States is going to react to this? Does this put Canada in a better place as we head to the G7, as we head to the NATO Leaders Summit?
Well, as you know, that the 2% was originally agreed to by Stephen Harper back in 2015. Of course, we didn't form government at the end of 2015. It was then Justin Trudeau Liberal government. And for 10 years, the Liberals sat on their hands and barely moved the dial on defense spending. Actually, the increase in spending that we've witnessed over the last decade has come through new accounting measures by adding in other departments, like part of the Coast Guard in the past, as well as veterans pensions and Global Affairs Canada budgets that deal with conflict resolution. So that type of creative accounting increased the Liberal spending a bit, but not actually a whole lot for the Department of National Defence. So I think that, you know, most of our allies would be sitting back going, well, it's about time, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure that Canada is that reliable partner, and Conservatives believe that we have to be in NATO, as well as under NORAD, and protect our own backyard first. And then at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we're not just spending money willy-nilly. We have to make sure we're investing in the capabilities and capacity that's required by the Canadian Armed Forces, including fixing the recruitment crisis that has currently been going on for far too long over the last 5 years, so we can get up to full troop strength and be able to deal with the equipment that is aged out on us, and right now is only about half of it is serviceable and able to be used by our forces.
All right, James Bezan, Conservative Shadow Minister for Defence, thanks for joining me and offering the opposition view on all this.
Glad to join you. Thank you so much.